Welcome into episode 122 of the Bluest Tape. I'm Harvey Couch and flying solo for a few minutes at least in this episode. Sorry, it's been a minute since we've been on, but I hope everybody had a happy holiday. And here's to hoping 2023 is going to be a great year for everybody. So we got a couple episodes coming up, this one and another one soon with another special guest, but we have two guests in this episode, and I want to get to it quickly, but I want to give you guys a little bit of info before we get into it. So I'm going to be joined here in just a few minutes by Geoff and Chris Hanson, the two guys behind Live at Oak Mountain, The Earth Will Swallow You, the classic film Scrapple, and its accompanying soundtrack. And they're going to finally, you're going to finally have a chance to watch The Earth Will Swallow You on a streaming service. It was, obviously it came out on DVD 20 years ago. And if you're like me, you still got it on your shelf, but maybe you're not like me and you lost it in a move or a girlfriend took it or whatever, and you haven't had a chance to see it in a long time, you're going to have that chance. And so I want to give you the details before we get into the interview, just about the stream, when you can see it, and all the details. So it's going to be available on nugs.net on January 21st, just this coming weekend, as this podcast and stream are going to be released. That's this Saturday, January 21st, 2023 at 8:00. So it's going to be like a live stream at that moment. You can buy it for $9.99. If you are a Nugs.net subscriber, you can get it for $8.49. And I think if you sign up for Nugs, if you're not a subscriber and you sign up for Nugs, I think you can get it for $5. So either way, it's pretty affordable for really what's, an awesome look at the band that we all know and love. Once you get it, you have, I think, 48 hours to watch it as many times as you want. So it's just check it out. But what I want to do is I had the great pleasure of hanging out with the two brothers, Geoff and Chris. And Jeff's been on the show a couple times before. Never talked to Chris before, and it was awesome hearing those guys. We got into the production of the film, and what they've been up to, and how that whole experience in the summer of 2000 through the beginning of 2001, filming all that stuff, and it's great. So hang out, watch that, or listen to that, however you're consuming this content, and then make sure you check out the film, The Earth Will Swallow You, January 21st at Nugs, 8 p.m. On Saturday, January 21st, 2023. So super exciting. Glad that it's the 20th anniversary of the film. So really excited for those guys that it's going to be available again. And I think they've got a lot of other great stuff in the hopper, hopefully coming out. So the other thing I wanted to mention, they've got a website up, scrapplemercantile.com. And you can get some, t-shirts and gear and stuff like that. So we're associated with The Earth Will Swallow You. And so check it out, scrapplemercantile.com. But make sure you check out The Earth Will Swallow You on Saturday on Nugs. And we talk about how much we want to see more archival releases from the band. We talk about that, Chris and Geoff and I. I mean, they've got a lot of footage that has not seen the light of day, like full concerts. And I think the more that we as a fan base can, put our money where our mouth is and support these kind of endeavors, and hopefully there'll be more coming in the future. So that's enough of me. I'm going to step aside, and I'll be right back with Chris and Geoff Hanson, the Hanson brothers, to talk about The Earth Will Swallow You. And I hope you guys are doing great. We'll be back with Geoff soon, and we'll be back in just a couple weeks, maybe less than a couple weeks, with our good friend Sam Holt, because he's got some shows coming up and we want to talk to him about that. And so we'll talk to you again really soon. Hope you guys are doing great, and enjoy my visit with the Hanson brothers.
Harvey, what's up?
Hey guys,
Guido,
coming from 3 different states across the United States. You guys are up north. I was just up north, and now I'm back down in the whatever we call it here in Kentucky. But thanks for joining us, Geoff and Chris Hanson.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, no, not a first time you've been on here. We've been on a couple times.
This is my third visit to the show.
Yeah. So happy to have you on, guys. Super excited, Geoff. You reached out a few weeks ago to talk about you've been talking about this, honestly. I think probably the last time we talked, you're like, we're looking to maybe do something, for the 20th anniversary of The Earth Will Swallow You. And here we are. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you guys about this. It was, I still have like vivid memories of I saw The Earth Will Swallow You at Headliners in Louisville in what was that? I guess the summer of 2002. Is that when they were sort of doing live? It was after Mikey passed, right? Or so it was.
I remember it played in Telluride the night Mikey died.
Yeah.
So it was doing that.
Yeah. So anyway, and remember, I still have the DVD. I mean, it's right. It's right up there. So it's among the like 20 DVDs that I still have on the shelf. So high level for you guys. So let's talk. I want to get into what's going on, with people finally being able to see this again, if they don't have it on a DVD. But what we sort of do usually on the show is talk a little bit about, y'all's history with the band. So maybe we could do a little bit of that. Geoff, we've heard, I think, your story, but maybe not Chris's as much. What, maybe like when you first kind of heard about Panic, got into Panic, what's your story as far as that goes, Chris?
Well, for me, I was listening to Widespread Panic first tapes when they came out in the early 90s, but I didn't actually get a chance to see them until 97. And I had this I was living in New York City at the time. Geoff and I were finishing another film that we made called Scrapple. And I went and saw Panic at the Beacon Theater in 97. And it was about a month after I'd gone to like 3 Allman Brothers show at the Beacon. And so I was like, yeah, they're cool.
Right.
Then the summer of 97, I ended up going to Red Rocks.
Okay.
And the last time I'd been at Red Rocks was in 87 to see The Dead. So I went to see Panic in 97 at Red Rocks, and then my head was blown off, and I was like, I'm on board.
Right.
And then it was just off to the races. So, went to a lot of shows after that in 97, 98, 99. And then leading right up to, we were at the Y2K shows in Atlanta. And if you had told me then, like in 6 months, you'll be making a movie on these guys, I would have flipped.
Yeah. So what was that? I mean, what was that timing like? So getting, assume that most of the people that are listening to this or watching this knows the timeline. But I mean, the film you guys shot in the summer of 2000 into 2001, right? Some studio stuff into 2001. When did you start talking about it? When did it become an idea? When did it become real?
Well, Geoff, let me answer this. Geoff might have answered this on previous shows or I don't know if you guys have talked about this before, but we made this movie called Scrapple, and we came down to we were trying to make the final print for the music, and we had a Stephen Stills song in there, and Stephen Stills' management was like, you cannot use this song. Like everyone else was playing with us, and we had
fantastic fantastic soundtrack, by the way. Just which is not, and I guess, is it available? Can people get it anywhere, or maybe we get into that later, maybe? But I mean, I know
there's
there
still
were
some
CDs.
CDs floating
Yeah,
about,
right.
and we're trying to figure out how to make it available.
It was a soundtrack. You could have gotten it, but it's
Right.
out of print. So
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
sorry. So
so-
you had a Stephen Stills song, and they were saying no.
And we had this one scene, and you know, all the music, the movie Scrapple takes place in 1978. So all the music, it is specific to that era. And then, you know, we had this summer montage, and we ended up finding Widespread Panic's The Takeout, and we put it in, and it fit perfect. It was like the same exact rhythms. And so Geoff started talking with Mary Armstrong, now Mary Armstrong Dugas, at Brown Cat about acquiring the rights to that song. And they were, I mean, we had to make a decision like in a week, and they gave it to us. They're like, yeah, you guys can use it. And so that began our relationship with Widespread Panic. And then in the summer of '99, Geoff approached them about doing a documentary about them, and they declined. They gracefully declined. And then in 2000, Mary, who was working at Brown Cat, you know, caught wind that some other filmmakers were proposing a documentary, and she let Geoff know and said, you know, you guys should put your name back in the hat. And so we did, and then Geoff, you can tell the story. Like we put our name in the hat, but we didn't know if we were gonna be called upon.
But the band had sort of decided that they were open to the idea at that point, right? If they were talking to other folks, right?
I don't remember that part about the other folks, but I'll take your word for it. I just forgot about that. So I started talking to Mary a little bit more concretely, and I mean, my memory of it, Chris, was that you didn't know. Like I didn't tell you because I didn't want to get you like false hopes. And so
no, we have very different memories of this.
Yeah, right.
They were going to make a decision of whether we were going to follow them for the summer. And so we were all ready. Like we, you know, that's why we called Mike Drum. Like we had all the camera equipment ready. You know, I was like practicing, like I was shooting other bands. I shot Colonel Bruce at the Fox Theater thinking I got to get ready. You know, we might be making this movie. And then Geoff remembers it like we didn't really get the green light until 3 days before. And that's where I think your memory.
We were getting ready to do it, but we hadn't gotten the green light. And we were waiting, and we were waiting. And when Mike Drum was the guy who was going to help us shoot Red Rocks. So we had everything in play for we made most of the movie from June 23rd, 2000 to July 4th, 2000. About 70% of the movie was Red Rocks, Phoenix, Warfield. Okay. And so.
Yeah, but that's a high percentage. That's not, no, but keep going.
Okay. But in terms of the guests, put it this way, the Taj Mahal and the Jorma Kaukonen piece was in play. They were ready. What we had ready to go before Panic said, let's do it, was this. We had a crew ready to shoot Red Rocks on Saturday, June 24th. Okay. We had Taj Mahal ready to meet us in the Celebrity Theater in Phoenix. And we had Jorma Kaukonen ready to meet us at the Warfield. That was all in play. And we were sitting there going, that's what I meant when I said that, was like the sort of influences were in play during those. After that, it's mostly people aside from Colonel Bruce is like an influence and a contemporary. So anyway, we had that all ready to go, and they were just not committing. I mean, we were sitting there going like, we're ready to go. And then, you know, Wednesday, I'll never forget it because it was one of those Zen things where I just said, I'm giving up. It's done. I'm cool.
It's not happening. I'm fine with it. Yeah.
We gave it a great shot. It's not happening. And then the phone rang like a minute later, and they were like, "It's happening." So you know, that's how So I'm in Baton Rouge at the time, and I got to get myself to Colorado where Chris was, and we were shooting 48 hours later at KBCO. That was the first thing we shot. They did a radio thing, and then it was like, you know, making a movie. You know, it was pretty cool because all that stuff was ready to go, and we were like, look how great this is going to be. I mean, if we can get this thing going, look what's look what's already in play.
So y'all had mapped out some of that stuff, and I assume had shared that with the band, right? I mean, the Yorma and the Taj piece, right? And the Red Rocks said, we're going to be with you doing these things. That sort of laid out.
The pitch was this. Widespread Panic is a band that makes music. That's what they do. Like ultimately, like Widespread Panic is a band that every night they get up on stage and play whatever they want and nobody tells them what to do. That's, I think, the core of the band. And while they make records and that's a valuable part of their process, really making, live performance, I think, has been the core for Panic. And just the act of making music is really what they're about. So we wanted to make a movie about them making music with each other, making music with their influences, contemporaries, and the people who influenced them. And that was the pitch. And, they thought, wow, that sounds good. So, Chris?
Yeah. And I mean, and as Geoff said, I mean, those first 2 weeks were unbelievable. I was living in Boulder at the time, and this is before 9/11, because I remember there were times where we were racing to airports and like catching flights like 20 minutes before the flight.
Yeah.
And so we went from Boulder to Phoenix. And that's where we shot Taj Mahal. And then we went from Phoenix to Las Vegas, and then Las Vegas to San Francisco. In the first 2 weeks of that tour, like we hit every stop along the way. And yeah, that was about the craziest rock and roll 2 weeks of my life by far. It was like all my rock and roll dreams.
The things that we got to do. I mean, if you look, so the whole, Red Rocks piece, which for Chris and myself, we're in the trailer cutting, a rock show of our favorite band. I mean, you talk about a dream, and we love the Last Waltz and we were into the genre of rock docs, so just that, wow, we're like
doing this,
shooting our favorite band with the crane and we called it with all the bells and whistles and so we did that, and then we go to Phoenix and cook with Taj and do that whole thing, and then we go to Vegas and do the whole Star Trek museum thing. And who was supposed to join us that day was Carrot Top, because he's
he's their Vegas buddy.
So the night before, I ended up hanging out with Carrot Top, and the guy said, Chris, you forgot, you missed the flight to Vegas. What's what you missed? Or at least the show.
No, I didn't miss. No. I was always coming a day late because it was a birthday.
That's right, because we couldn't shoot because it was
right. Yeah, that was like our first. That was like our first conflict. Like Geoff was in Vegas going, "You should be here. Carrot Top's here." And I was like, "I don't know." Carrot Top.
We're backstage with Carrot Top, and I don't have a camera. and then we go to San Francisco, go to a baseball game with Mikey and Yogi and Trey, and then I go to pick up Mikey at the hotel the next day because we're going to go to Chinatown, and I go into the room with him, and he invites me in, and he sits down, and we're just hanging out, and he's like, "Would you like to smoke some weed?" And he pulls out the apple, and we interviewed Merle Saunders where he said the same thing. He's like, "I'd never smoked weed out of an apple before," and so Mikey like carved open the apple, and we smoked a bowl in his hotel room. And like, you talk about breaking bread, like that was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. And then we go out and shop in Chinatown with him and John Keane, and then we go to the Warfield, and then Yorma's there, and we're in the basement, and it was insane. And then Chris left, and then I went over to Merle Saunders' house and interviewed Merle and Peanut, and then went out to dinner with Merle. I mean, it was like really, wow. It was
dreamland stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing, we ended up getting to do all kinds of stuff, but that was so concentrated. I mean, between June 23rd and July, 5th,
right?
5th, I mean, it was like it was like the rock and roll fantasy, like the Bad Company song or whatever.
So were you guys both during that time shooting? I mean, were you both just like had cameras, or was was somebody's role more one thing or the other, or were y'all both just all hands on deck,
Chris is the
whatever?
director. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like the principal camera, and then Geoff. I mean, and this was the beginning of this was the DV cameras were like this big.
Right.
So we had like a couple Canons, a couple Sonys. We thought this technology was like cutting edge and amazing.
It was for like 5 months. It was.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, for 6 years before
Yeah.
the iPhone came along,
Right.
and now everybody could do this.
Right.
But back in those days, to be that fly on the wall,
Yeah.
to have a little,
It was hard to do. Yeah.
it was a lot harder to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and a cool thing that you see, like when you watch The Earth Will Swallow You, the coolest thing, and to be part of the Panic fan base at that time, it's like, we're at the Warfield, and we were set up, by the soundboard, we have these great seats, where we're like a foot above everybody else, like it's on the floor. I mean, you see these shots, and there's not one phone. Like, everybody is all in the moment. Everyone is like on every note, and you just don't have that in music anymore. It's so sad. I mean, so just to see that archive, like that we captured this moment in time in rock and roll with Widespread Panic, but like all concerts were like that. And obviously before, like, when you went to a concert, you were all in, and, not distracted by your phone. I mean, cell phones were like, it was cool having cell phones that summer because they're like walkie talkies. Like you could, you could be at a venue and call someone and be like, where are you? Right. It was before the smartphone. And I think that's a cool thing about this summer with Widespread Panic in 2000 it was before like this modern era of iPhones. And although, so we, in each city, we would also hire a couple additional camera people and a sound person as well. So each city we have like,
I was the producer. Chris, I was booking the hotel rooms and, doing all that. Chris was really the director, but I had a camera. I shot a lot of really cool stuff. And one of the themes of the movie is that everybody's making the movie. Like if you'll see in the film, like at a certain point, Mikey grabs the Super 8 film camera, and there's different points where. And then there's this other thing where there's music is being played everywhere. Like in Chinatown, the people are playing music. And so it's this kind of thing, like everybody's participating in the movie, and that's why, and then the guy goes like, Hollywood is for movies, movies are for movies. And it's, there were some things like these serendipitous things that happen that hopefully happen for everybody when they make a movie that make it like really cool. A great example of that is like, we knew we wanted to shoot. Chris and I had this like really powerful psychedelic experience when we were in college at the Alice in Wonderland sculpture in New York City. And so we were like, let's go back there and shoot, a scene there at the sculpture. So we knew we were going to do that. And then at the 24th, the show with that we shot, at Red Rocks, they play Arlene, and Colin Butler is on the turntables, and he starts doing this Alice in Wonderland thing. And
you guys are looking at each other like, is this really happening? Is this really happening?
My favorite cut in the whole movie is you're backstage in the truck, and you're seeing Colin Butler, and you're hearing the thing, and JB's totally tripped out by it. Yeah. He's like this, and then he goes like that, and it cuts to Alice in Wonderland in Central Park.
Yeah.
And it's just perfect. And that was something that like we couldn't that was just too good to even orchestrate that.
Yeah.
And we knew, like, we went in, we were fans of rock docs, and certainly The Last Waltz was a big one. So we went in, we weren't 100% sure what we were going to get, like, let's go shoot it all and we'll figure it out later. But we did have like little ideas, like, early, like one of the first shots in the movie and one of the first shots we took was at Red Rocks, and we're outside the door of the dressing room. And so, I was a fan of the Doors, when I was a young teen, and I always loved the idea of like doors of perception. And so throughout the summer, we were like, doors.
Find a door. Where's there a door?
All about, and that's the art of the movie, is the door in the universe, in the space. And then you have these things that happen that, like, Sonny looks at us while we're shooting in Athens, and he goes, "You can leave the door open if you want to." And he's just talking about to the camera guy, but to us, as a narrative device, he's talking about minds.
Right.
He's not just talking about doors. Yeah. And I think these are the things that the fans picked up on, that they realized that, like, wow, like this movie is operating at on a bunch of different levels. Like they're not just, there's a lot of symbolism in the film, and particularly with the doors. I mean, Chris really hence the art. But anyway, when Sonny said that, those little moments, like, just kind of take it like to a whole nother, like a little bit deeper level,
So like y'all kind of built the movie like at least when I look at the chapter listing, right? It's kind of like a set list, which I always appreciated as a set list nerd. So I don't want to go through the whole thing, but let's like kind of go in chronological order, if that's cool, and just like hit on a few things that stand out to me still 20 years later. I guess we talked about guests, right? Lots of guests, but influences and contemporaries. And I guess the first guest that we hear from is the Colonel, right? And outside, is that outside Commander's Palace in New Orleans? Okay. Very familiar space, right?
Yep.
Was that like obvious that you should start with the Colonel, or did that just kind of, as you sort of put all the pieces together, that's where that one made the most sense?
So, like a feature film that's kind of like shot out of order. Colonel Bruce played with Panic at Oak Mountain. And so we knew we wanted him to be part of the film. And we ended up making Live at Oak Mountain. That was the second concert that we shot. We shot Red Rocks and we shot Oak Mountain. And then Widespread Panic wanted to release Oak Mountain. But so when we were at Oak Mountain, Colonel Bruce was playing. It ended up being the night after Live at Oak Mountain.
August 13th, 2000.
And then Geoff and I, we ended up interviewing Bruce in a hotel in Birmingham somewhere, and we were up until like late with him, and just totally and
it looked like this.
Jiving out with him.
It literally looked like that.
So when we looked at the footage, we're like, that footage is heinous. We need to shoot it again. And there were parts of the film that we still needed, like we needed a JoJo part. So after the summer of 2000, we decided to go to New Orleans, and we were
for the Halloween run, right?
Yeah, for the Halloween run.
We first time they ever played it.
And we shot, JoJo Tipitinas, and then we saw, we went to all the shows, and then we got the Colonel Bruce interview. And I can't remember, Geoff, then we went to Athens.
January. So you got it. So it was October of 2000. All right. So it went like this. We went on the road with them from June 23rd when we started. Then we did till July 5th. Then we went out to Alpine Valley where Dylan and Panic and Phil Lesh were playing. And then we went to the Harmony Music Festival on July 5th. That was so cool. And we have some footage of some fan interviews that we're going to put out soon that are really cool. People are going to see themselves 20 years earlier and go, whoa.
Man, that definitely, because I threw it on this afternoon and it was like, man, the styles have changed.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that Alpine. I totally forgot about that show. Was there hope that something more interesting would happen? Because there was no interaction between those guys, right? Or at least not on stage.
I called Phil Lesh's publicist, and he said, and I quote, if we see a camera near Phil Lesh, we will take it from you and break it on the ground. That's what Phil's guy said to me.
Okay, cool.
So we were not shooting there.
Yeah.
Well, no. So we went to Alpine Valley with we'll just shoot parking lot stuff, and they tried to shut us down in the parking lot too.
Oh, wow.
So we've got some great little, I interviewed Geoff at the end of the day, run down the day. So we basically went to Alpine Valley to get shut down, and we're we're making a movie. And we can't even shoot fan stuff in the parking lot.
Yeah, wow.
But it was a fun, it was Panic warming up. Phil Lesh warming up for Bob Dylan.
I got to see Phil Lesh on the side of the stage with Dave watching, which was it was a bust, film wise, but experientially, the whole film for us was it was a peak experience, but it didn't really work out. But then we went to Harmony Park in Minnesota, and that was awesome. I mean, they played there a couple of times, but it was way out in the middle of nowhere and camping scene, and we shot some pretty cool stuff there. And
so before we go through each of the places that we went, the question was when we reshot that stuff with Bruce Hampton, back in at Halloween. Yeah, we thought that would be he would be one of the first people we should check in with, since he was the godfather of Horde Tour and Jam Band
music. He started at the beginning. Well, he said, I delivered this tape at Agnes Scott College, and there were 4 people there, so that was a natural place to start. I'll quickly get us to the chronology ending. So we did Harmony Park, and then we went up and did Bolton, Vermont on the 30th. And then we went to Central Park on the 1st, and then
I went to Atlantic City by myself. Some of this stuff Geoff went with people, or I went to Atlantic City by myself, and it was a total bust. JoJo was not in good shape, and he was, and they were like, "Don't use anything from Atlantic City." And I was like, "Great, see you in New York in a couple days." So.
And so then we did New York, and then we went and met them. And then we did the jam,
Winston-Salem, right?
Which I think a lot of people will speak to how incredible that show was. It was amazing. And we have incredible coverage of that show, and we hope to do something with it. Yeah. We could cut something really good from that show. So that's sort of, we have a couple of shows that we think we could do something with, and that's one of them. And then we did Oak Mountain, and that was the end of the tour. And then we went to Dave's house in September and shot with
No, they went to Keystone.
Oh, Keystone, right?
Right. Then that was the end of the tour.
First time Carl Denson ever played with him. I interviewed Carl once, and I talked about it. He goes, "That's the first time I ever played with Panic." They did that Low Spark, which was insane. So Keystone, then we went to Athens and shot with Vic in September, but it wasn't we didn't quite, I don't know, it was good, really good, but it wasn't, I don't know, we felt like we had to go back. So we did September, and then we went back, then we went to New Orleans in October, and then Athens in January of 21, where we recorded the Mikey and JB and the Big Chestnut stuff, and then that was it. We wrapped it on January 20th, 2001. So it was about 10 months, 2000 into early 20 into 2001.
So that was my next note, was the driving song sandwich on the front porch. That was, we did, when I got married to my wife, I don't know how many years ago, a long time ago. We were still married, we did a CD, was our party favor. And I ripped the driving song off of The Earth Will Swallow You, was one of the tracks. And then the Genesis with Yorma and JB was another one of the tracks out of the 15 on the mix tape. Those were 2 of them. So I love that. I mean, the porch. So was that one of y'all's ideas or?
Well, I mean, it was again, I don't want to, let's just say it was both of our ideas.
Okay. But I mean, it wasn't the band. It wasn't like JB wasn't like, "Oh, well, why don't you get me and Mikey out on the front porch doing a driving song?"
No. I'll say, because Chris and I were, we were compadre. We were coming up with this stuff. Yeah. But the idea was, let's get JB and Mikey on the steps of John Keane's studio and have them play the song that represents the kernel of the coming together of Widespread Panic. Mm-hmm. So I went to JB and I said, JB, I want to play you and Mikey to do the song on the porch, and I want it to be the song that represents the beginning of Widespread Panic. And he goes, well, for me, it's Driving Song, but you're going to have to ask Mikey. So I went to Mikey and I said, Mikey, we want to do this thing with you and JB on the porch representing the beginning of Widespread Panic. What song would it be? And he goes, it would be Driving Song for me, but you have to ask JB.
Oh, nice.
So
that's cool.
I love that little story.
So once you had that, you had it locked down because you're like, oh, you guys are great. It's perfect.
Yeah, right. And then of course, like, I mean, look, I don't want to break my arm, pat myself on the back. Ouch. But to me, that song, those guys, that is the sort of the most significant Widespread Panic clip that there is. That's the holy grail of Widespread Panic footage, in my opinion. Yeah. It's just those guys on the porch where it started doing that song and killing it. I mean, just absolutely. So, I mean, you know, again, I don't, but I really feel like that's a hugely significant piece. So, I mean, of all of the stuff that we shot, to me, that's the core. You know, Chris, I don't know how you feel about it, but.
Well, I mean, I just think as far as like making a film about Widespread Panic, like we didn't go in thinking, let's find this obscure song called The Earth Will Swallow You. But, you know, as we were following them through the summer and getting all these clips in all these different locations, that idea did come to us before the end of the summer tour, where there's this song called The Earth Will Swallow You. So the whole reason we were going to Athens in the first place was we were going to go back into the studio and they were going to re-record The Earth Will Swallow You. And then in the movie, like, JoJo's never played it.
This was the idea of playing music, was watch them. We were like, we'd like to watch you relearn a song that you forgot. Like, we'll watch the process of you figuring it out. And they were into it. They were like, wow, yeah, sure.
And y'all that was literally my next question. So you guys brought The Earth Will Swallow You as, why don't y'all try this?
Yes, because it was a classic song. They played it 10 times and they dropped it.
Yeah,
you know, and it's kind of like, you know, the Believe It or Not by the Dead.
Was there? I mean, did you ask them like why it was on the shelf, or did they just not?
I think they said it was kind of
just whack notes. I think was what they said. But I mean, so in terms of planning that day, you know, so we knew we were going to go and they were going to sing or they were going to re-record The Earth Will Swallow You. Then we knew Vic Chestnut was going to come in. I don't know if we knew he was going to sing My Last Act. And then we also got them to do Driving on the Porch. So that was a pretty big day for the film.
Yeah.
And that was kind of that was after we had shot the whole summer and we were like, okay, how can we fill in the holes and make a storyline that flows throughout? And that's kind of like how you make films. It's like we'd had that experience with making Scrapple where, you know, we shot in 24 days, but then we did a 5 days of pickup at the end where you kind of like go, okay, this is where we can, you know, make the through line or reshoot stuff, etc.
Yeah, I don't think when we started making the movie, we thought that we would shoot beyond the tour. But then we were like, it's not just a tour film, it's a it's a think piece about a band. So let's keep diving into, you know, the medulla oblongata of this band and make a movie that feels like a Widespread Panic concept. Sure, you picked up on it. I mean, that was one of the gifts of driving, was knowing that like we could go do it early and then go make the rest of the movie and then come back.
Yeah.
Just like the band does. And, you know, people picked up on that. I think, you said you did. And I think most people get it. It's like, wow, this is that. I mean, there's literally a set break in the movie. I mean, like, you know, I mean, it was literally, that's how we, you know, this is a band. This is a band that makes music. This is a band that plays, you know, 2 sets and a set break. And, you know, so it was, I don't know. It was you know, like we said, experientially, it was insane. And, you know, we're both super proud of the movie. I mean, I think look, the thing about that movie that it's sort of the elephant in the room in a sad way is like there's like Big Something has an album of one of the covers where the whole band is sitting on a raft playing, and there's a shark right below them that's about to take the shark out, the raft out. It's kind of what was happening with Panic. Like they're on the raft, everything's great, but there's something below that's about to change the thing forever.
Right.
And nobody, we had no idea. It was the best of times, but it wasn't the worst of times yet.
Right. But it was right around the corner, right?
It was coming and nobody knew it, man. It was like all fun and games. It was the band was just, cresting.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I think we're both grateful and I think that somebody documented the band before that happened.
Yeah.
We were fortunate that it was us. Historically, it is a good thing, and we were very fortunate that we got to be, the filmmakers who got to do it.
Yeah. So the Earth Will Swallow You recording, did the band have any consideration that might get released? I mean, because that was about Don't Tell the Band recording era, right? So did they even consider that as being, or is it just a one-off, like we'll do this for the guys? Because then they played it at New Year's in 2001, right? Later, like 11 months later, but
they played it in Halloween, one of those nights.
Okay, yeah.
9:30 in 2000.
2001 is actually because y'all. Because I'm a nerd and I know this stuff.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So y'all filmed down there in October of 2000, and then you did the studio stuff in January of 2001, and then they played it live in October of 2001.
Yeah, I was living down there, so I never missed a show. So it's hard for me to remember.
They run together. Yes, we're always there.
But I do remember they played it in New Orleans, I think first.
Yeah, you're right.
And I was there, and then they played it again in Atlanta, and I got to see that, and got to see Vic do that really cool set in 2000, or was that?
That was 2001. Maybe that was 2000. That one I'm not sure. I'm not as solid on my New Year's as I am on the New Orleans stuff. But so did you get a sense for whether that would be something that would ever see the light of day? The recording of that, in studio?
Of no idea.
Yeah. Well, but even like at the time, right? Like, was there like, oh, well, let's see if we get anything out of this. Like maybe this might make the record or
no. I mean, we thought we built it as like an important structural part of the film of them learning this song.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was like kind of like Chris said, I mean, it's kind of why we went.
No, but I mean, the band wasn't considering putting that on an official release, on an album.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
But they were when we went there, they were making Don't Tell the Band.
Right. That's what I was saying. I didn't know if there was ever any conversation among the band that maybe they would, and you guys might not know this, but that would have been, kind of cool.
I will say this, that Vic Chestnut walked into that room and he just started teaching the guys this song they had never heard. And within like an hour, they recorded it.
Yeah.
The musicianship was mind-blowing, and that was 22 years ago. It blows me away, like how good like the band is. I mean, 20 years ago, this guy walks in and they record a song like instantly. I mean, it was like it was incredible. And then they walked out of there, and like JoJo's like, he was like, what was that song about? he was like chopping off the legs of spiders and eating them in cereal.
Yeah. And that didn't ever see the light of day either. I mean, that wasn't on the Cobalt record. Either.
We have certainly the only recorded version of that is our version of it. And I think it was only played one other time.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think he played it one other time. He played it live. He recorded it with Panic, and it's never been released. And we have a crisp.
Good. It's such a good song.
It's so weird and dark and twisted, and it's really,
like all of his stuff, which is why it's great.
Yeah,
it's really weird in a good way.
What being in the studio, I felt there were some of the, and you talked about like the small form of the camera. there were some times where it felt like claustrophobic, where you guys were just in their space. You know what I mean? Especially backstage in those little rooms, and in the studio too. Was there ever a sense, like, obviously they're probably not used to having cameras around them all the time. Did it feel awkward, or like that you were intruding in their, in their workflow or did it feel more like you were just bugs on the wall and they were just doing their thing? And what was that like?
I mean, I think at that point they had gotten used around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think the first, like when we were in Phoenix with Taj Mahal, or the Warfield with Yorma, they were getting used to us being around. Mm-hmm. But by the end of the summer, I think they trusted us, and Colonel Bruce says something during the set break, like, if these cameras weren't always following me around, I would say some shit, and then you hear me say, right, kind of like breaks the fourth wall, where it's like, hey, dude, let's leave him alone for a second, and then it cuts.
Right.
So we were always very respectful of
we were going for the fly on the wall, and then of course, but I think it was, we got to, get a good rapport with the guys, and I think they knew it was not going to be something that lasted, I mean, and like they did a whole lot of stuff like this with Andy Tennille, some really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So they've kind of kept it going in terms of not having a problem with people.
Yeah.
They haven't done that much stuff, but Andy did a bunch of really good stuff.
So y'all did a lot of like one-on-one. I mean, probably with each of the. Did you do? Yeah, basically each band member had got like sort of a one-on-one bit, right, in the movie, and so I would think that would be something not easy, but you could approach the one guy and be like, "Oh, I have this idea. Let's do this." But for the collective. Because it's not like the John Bell band, it's the six guys. How did that work? If you all had an idea, like, we want to come to do this, to see you do this in the studio or whatever, like, did everybody kind of have to be on board, or did you get a sense for how that worked with the band?
Well, like when we edited it, we had to send them versions, and then they all would watch it. And of course, like Sonny probably paid more attention to when his little piece, or JB during his piece, and we respected when they said, can you take this out? Can you take this out? So there's a longer first draft where each interview is much longer, and then there were probably things that they were sensitive, like, please trim that out, please trim that out. But everything that the final draft of The Earth Will Swallow You was approved by the band, like, yes, we will let you guys put this out. Whereas like the first draft, there was probably some stuff that, like, can you take out, where Jerry Joseph says something inappropriate, or, Sonny says something embarrassing about, Catholic school. We're like, yeah, we'll take that stuff out. Okay. So,
we did, when I said that earlier about the first, 2 weeks we were on the road and being 70%, we shot 4 of the 6 band profiles in those 2 weeks. So we really did. We knocked out JB in Vegas. We did Mikey in San Francisco. We did our Dave interview in San Francisco, and we did Todd in San Francisco. So, we really like, and then we, I guess we were trying to figure out what to do with JoJo. I think that's why we went to New Orleans, was to shoot JoJo, right? Because
and JoJo is kind of a guest star in Vegas, so you do get to see him a little bit there. But JoJo didn't want to do anything other than, he said, I'll play, at Tipitina's. I'll play, on my piano at Tipitina's. We're like, great, well, that's your segment then. Yeah. But, when you look back at the film, he is hanging out with JB in the Star Trek
lounge. Star Trek sequence is just, and we didn't have any clearance, to do that. I mean, we were super stealth in and the Star Trek thing. I mean, we were violating all kinds of.
What was more guerrilla, that or the Central Park one? What was
that equally? Because Central
Okay.
Park, same thing. Like
Yeah.
we did not have permits to shoot in Central Park, but we just went with a lot of confidence. Like and probably
It's
we
New
had
York,
learned
whatever.
the ways of guerrilla filmmaking.
Mhm.
Like I'm sure we had
but people weren't walking around Central Park looking at the thing in Vegas was so super stealth. I mean, it was. And JB makes some of the funniest comments in that thing. He's talking about the Federation. He made some line about like some comment about the Federation.
Right.
I mean,
when they come, you want to make sure that they know you're on the right side. He has so many great lines, and it was such a cool way to get to learn. I mean, 'cause you really do get a sense for all these guys, but man, JB has got the best lines. Like "Did you get those sandwiches, boy?" To JJ walking up on the porch.
Well, I mean, I've been saying it for 20 years since he said it in that scene with Jojo. He goes, "If you feed them, then they grow." About kids, if you feed them, then they'll grow.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's got a funny little sense of humor. But one of the things that I remember about Mikey so fondly was that he had a funny little sense of humor.
Mhm.
And the guys, they all loved him so much that whenever he made a joke, everybody laughed so hard. Because Mikey was just like, he was just an angel, of a guy. I mean, he really was. He was such a sweetheart of a guy. And if you ever listen to the me and Mikey tapes between in '93 with JB and Mikey, if you listen to the way those guys talk to each other and the respect that they have for each other that was in '93, and that just carried on, and certainly between JB and Mikey, but I think the rest of the band as well. But anyway, I just, a big, Mikey's the star of The Earth Will Swallow You, sadly, because it's the last time we get to spend any time with him.
Yeah.
And he was gone. But he was just, he had a funny little sense of humor, man. He would make he'd come in with these jokes and everybody would crack up. Chris, you recall stuff like that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there were just so many, like I'm reminded, Jeff, I don't know if you remember, like we shot a whole sequence with JB playing golf. Like, so we were like, but the Star Trek thing was so far superior than because he loved playing golf too.
But that was a thing for SMA. That was a thing for spinal muscular atrophy for Hannah, the golf thing. Do we do two golf things? Remember we went to Orlando and shot something for Hannah's buddies.
I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah.
Maybe we're trying to do a little both.
Well, all I'm saying is we had a whole sequence where we went out and played golf with JB. And then there were lots of like behind, like backstage at venues, like having lunch or like chilling, with Dave Schools or Mikey Hauser. And again, we were like shooting all this stuff going, we don't know what's going to end up like in the final film. And I mean, like, I just have to, one of my favorite, and it was front loaded. Like when we were at the Warfield for 4 nights, that was such an amazing experience. And there was like a room down in the Warfield, like there were a bunch of different rooms. So there's not like one green room. There's like, and there was this one room where everyone signed the wall. And so we did a little piece on like all the signatures in there. Again, it never made it in the film, but like to see Jerry Garcia's signature, amongst all of these musicians' signatures, and then to like go in with a Sharpie and like sign your own name, kind of like the tunnel that's in Red Rock. Like there's that, like, I don't know if people know about that tunnel. Like there's the tunnel that goes up to the soundboard, and all these musicians have signed in the tunnel. That was one of the cooler things of that summer tour was, because, Jeff and I are both big Deadheads. So to be at the Warfield shooting Widespread Panic, and like I said, my first real Widespread Panic weekend was so similar to like a Grateful Dead weekend at Red Rocks. So like to be at the Warfield shooting Widespread Panic, in the basement, like checking out Jerry Garcia's signature and all the great, like, and I can't even remember, like, I should unearth that footage and see who else is in there. I'm sure it's like people like Grace Slick and Jorma Kaukonen and whatever, but that was a pretty big highlight from that summer.
There's footage, like you just said, like that like the interview that I did with Merle Saunders, like, I don't think I've ever seen it. I mean, Peanut. Oh, no. It's in the movie.
Yeah, there's a couple clips in the movie.
Yeah, but I did a whole, like, I interviewed, I asked him about Jerry. I want to see the stuff that, like, I was like, well, tell me about Jerry. And he started telling me all the stuff about Jerry. And anyway, so there's like the archive, that's the thing about it. It's like, I want to see it,
Right.
I guess that's the next thing we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Talk about, what we want to do with the footage.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely want to get into that. So, but do you think, Chris, the stuff in the Warfield, I mean, because the one of the hardest things of making a film, I mean, I've never made one, but I mean, having cut some video stuff together is like getting it concise, right? And you want it tight. You want it to be, you don't want it to feel bloated, right? And so cutting that stuff out, the stuff you really like, just because it maybe doesn't add to the story, is there something that stood out to you? Is like maybe the last thing that you it was just really, you're like, oh, it's this or that, or it's this really should be in there, but it doesn't fit, or anything stick out like that?
Well, let me think for a second. I mean, because the Warfield was so packed, we had Jorma coming, and so we have JB and Jorma singing Genesis, and then when the whole band's in the basement rehearsing. So, but we were there for 4 days just shooting tons of stuff, and that's another. I think we shot 2 concerts there on the 3rd and the 4th, so we feel like we've got all this footage that we could go back and find selects or whole concerts. I mean, during that, we shot professionally Red Rocks and Oak Mountain, just the highest quality recording at the time, which was beta.
Did you guys and not to get in the weeds, but did you guys punch that live, or did you do it in post, like all the cuts
live at Oak Mountain?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, were you switching cameras?
Yeah, we did a live line cut, both at Red Rocks and at Oak Mountain. But then when we released live at Oak Mountain, we went back and
cleaned up some stuff, or did some cover shots, and
Yeah, but there were a couple. I know that there were some shots that were like shot. That was how it was shot live.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of if it's Papa's or.
There's some
I can't remember which one.
Screen stuff in Live at Oak Mountain that I love, like old school split screen stuff. That's
the Ride Me High's got some of that, I think.
Well, and recently going through some of the footage, like at the end of the concert that we shot on the 12th, which ended up being live at Oak Mountain, and so people were watching it, like they were watching the concert, but there was also the jumbotron, and I don't know that every concert. I mean, certainly they didn't have that at Red Rocks when we were there. And back in 2000, I don't know how many venues had, the big screens. But so people were watching our cut during the big screen. And then, when the concert ended, they were done, and they played
Burning Down the House. Right.
And so I recently came across that footage of like people actually dancing and singing to Burning Down the House. Yeah. And of course, I don't know that we can ever put that on the internet because it would just get shut down because it's Talking Heads. But the energy in that place after that show was just insane. And, we used that footage at the end of the movie. You see people dancing, like you can almost read their lips. They're saying Burning Down the House, and it's to a different song. But like when you see it actually to Burning Down the House, that was an insane moment. And again, we were in the camera truck, right? Like we weren't out, watching the show. But when I look back at that footage, which I recently unearthed, it was a reminder of what an amazing summer it was. But to your question of, I think everything that we meant to shoot well, we did shoot well, or well enough to get into the film. Like going to Dave School's basement to shoot with Vic Chestnut, or going into John Keane's studio to shoot with the band, or going to Tipitina's with JoJo. Like, I don't think that there's much that didn't make it in that we didn't want to make it in. I mean, maybe some stuff at Keystone with Dirty Dozen, but even part of that made it in. And that's where we also shot with both band members. It ended up being bonus footage on Live at Oak Mountain. But that's why, you know, we've got, you know, hundreds of hours of footage of Widespread Panic during the summer of 2000, and that, you know, we want to get out there. You know, we want to try to cut some of these songs, if not, you know, concerts, you know, that represent the Michael Hauser era.
Yeah.
And you know, like, and one of those, I mean, the Phoenix show with Taj Mahal is an unbelievable concert, you know, concert in the round. And we only, you know, there's maybe, you know, 5 minutes, if even 5 minutes, a few minutes of that in the movie. And same with the Winston-Salem show. We just did something, you know, before the show with Danny and Eric and JB.
David
Blackman, yeah.
And David Blackman.
Last time he ever played with a band.
But we didn't, you know, we shot that whole concert, 6 different little DV cameras, like pretty well shot.
Yeah.
Like, we've never put, I mean, I think Jeff posted a, you know,
Diner.
bits and pieces of that, like a diner.
Well, and This Part of Town and Ain't Life Grand. I put a bunch of stuff of that. Just little clips. The diner clip is, I mean, there's a close up of JB, and he says, "Thank you for your smile." It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And he, you know, one of the things that struck me that whole summer when I was shooting JB is how much he looked like Chris Christopherson. In that video from Winston-Salem,
yeah,
he looks just like Chris Christopherson. Anyway, I mean, that's just, I just remember watching through I remember at the Warfield shooting him and just being like, my God, look at JB. He looks like Christopherson. But, you know, the other thing that we've done is Chris and I, we've started a site called the Scrapple Mercantile. And so it's like a store and a place to like have bohemian, cool mountain scrapply stuff. And so we're going to be selling some Scrapple stuff, but we've got some Mikey and JB hats, T-shirts, koozies, stickers, patches, basically going out with those guys.
Can people buy copies of Scrapple, the film?
Yeah.
DVDs?
Well, actually, you know, one of the things that we want to do that we think is Scrapple's kind of funny because with Amazon Prime, you can watch Scrapple.
Okay.
But all of a sudden, like, now you have to watch a commercial every 8 minutes, like they do everything else. You used to be able to watch it.
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
you watch commercials, and then Chris and I don't get any money from it.
You don't get like 0.001 cents every time somebody watches it.
We do, but it's still not enough to write us a check.
Yeah, so we don't get anything. So we're like, well, screw that. Let's just put it out for people to see. Our goal right now is like, how can we put it out where people can watch it without having to watch a commercial?
Right.
So we're working on that, because if you go to YouTube with it, then they start putting their, you know, commercials in it. So it's kind of, you know, but we have this idea of sending our movie around to free to everybody. No one's ever, I don't know. We haven't really seen that be done. And then hopefully they'll buy a T-shirt.
Right.
But, you know, it's just like Chris said, you know, you make this stuff, you know, we're relatively lucky in the sense that people can see our work. I mean, it's not that easy to see it, but like, you know, it's a lot of people's work. They do this stuff and it never gets seen by anybody. And that's, I think, what every artist wants is at least somebody to be able to see their work. Making money is great, but like the idea of making stuff and having it never be seen by anybody is super frustrating to, I think, anybody who makes anything. So we just want, that's the whole thing with the archive. That's the whole thing with, we just want people to see the stuff. We're proud of it. We think it's cool work, and, you know, we'd like to share it.
So the website Scrapple Mercantile, is that what you said?
Yes. Scrapplemercantile.com, and then, you know, we'll do some social stuff.
And so there'll be like merch and stuff there too. And when we're hoping that there'll be maybe some unreleased videos, footage, and things popping up there down the road.
Yes. We have a cool thing we're going to launch with on Tuesday. So
okay.
we're going to put something up there.
One thing I've always, and maybe I asked you this last time, Geoff, and obviously I didn't get a good enough answer, so maybe I'll ask Chris this time.
You forgot?
Was
Or no?
you guys clearly shot Red Rocks full bells and whistles. But then that never actually saw the light of day. Was the plan to always do Red Rocks and Oak Mountain and then see which one they liked best, or you guys liked best, or what was that? And maybe you can't get too deep into that, but what was that process like? Are there ever any hopes that we might see 6/24/2000 fully out to the light of day? Who do we need to yell at to make that happen?
I mean, we will get 6/24/2000 out there because it's the best show. I mean, we shot Red Rocks, like 8 camera, cranes, jibs, like lenses, like as expensive as a car, and we did it again at Oak Mountain, and then we kind of had these 2 great concerts. They wanted to go with Oak Mountain, and we thought, well, that's great because Red Rocks is better. Like the Red Rock show is just, and I've seen some dirty copies out there, like somebody, illegally recorded a line cut. So like there are a couple parts that are floating out there on the dark web or whatever on YouTube. But we've got, I mean, it is really my hope that we'll be able to get the June 24th show of Widespread Panic in 2000, out there. And as Geoff just said, and the same with, Live at Oak Mountain, it's hard to find now because, it was a gold DVD when DVDs were like the pinnacle of technology. And it was produced by a company called Sanctuary Records that's now out of business. So, that's another thing. We want to see the Oak Mountain stuff get back out there. I mean, if we have to recut it, we'll recut it. Like it's just 2 beautiful shows from Widespread Panic in 2000, and where the band just showed up, and we were lucky enough to be there.
Yeah,
and recorded.
I think you're going to see some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We may end up getting sued over it, but you're going to see it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to break any news on this podcast, but I was just, because it does feel like sometimes that stuff needs some momentum, right? And you guys are doing what you can do and making it available, but sometimes the fans need to shake the tree a little bit too, right? And let and tell people that, hey, we'll pay for this, or we want to see this. We know it's out there. So
and that's where Mitchell Davis, good buddy, and he's throwing a celebratory, streaming launch party in Charleston, South Carolina on the 6th as well. And he's been really like just celebrating our footage and trying to, help us get it out to the masses, and we've got, full shows, not as professionally shot, but, 6 different camera people with the hot, semi highest technology at the time, at the Warfield in San Francisco and in Central Park and in where else? I mean, I'm not 100% sure we shot the whole Central Park, but we shot the whole Phoenix show. We shot 2 Warfield shows. We shot the show at Winston-Salem. There's another show at Oak Mountain on the 18th where we shot the whole show.
13.
And then there are dozens of like at Harmony Park, where Geoff and I were the only camera guys. We shot, multiple songs.
The 13th show has got a lot of really killer Colonel Bruce stuff too.
Yeah.
Really cool.
I mean, I know the band a couple of years ago did the Never Miss a Sunday show, like YouTube series, and they were pulling things out of the archives, I guess, that they had. I'm guessing they didn't reach out at that point, or did they? Or I don't want to get too deep.
Well, they may have, but I think we were like, we're just going to put it out there for
right.
And then at the end of the day, it's like, the streaming, the numbers are really pitiful, for what you get for putting the stuff out there.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have to go remix the sound, it becomes sort of like when we made this stuff in 2000, I mean, I think the idea was that someday there's going to be a technology that is developed that will have security so that people can't just rip it, and we'll just wait for that day.
Mm-hmm.
It never came.
Yeah.
And I don't think we even imagined that in 2000 that like DVDs would phase out.
Right.
Now, like what do we do if we have Red Rocks footage 2000? What do we do with it? I can't sell you a DVD because nobody has a DVD player, though we would make them.
Mm-hmm.
People would buy them, but then you got to go to the streaming platforms and the money.
Oh
man. Okay, now we can really get into it, Chris.
All right.
We do want to say that Geoff is live from a hotel in Simsbury, Connecticut, on the road with his family for a hockey tournament, right? So we appreciate him taking the time out. I'm gonna put him in the lobby, and if he comes back, I'll bring him back. All right. I didn't boot him off completely. He's still there, but I think we did most of the things that I certainly all the stuff that I wanted to hit on.
It's such an amazing opportunity to be here with you tonight, and we are so excited. Like Geoff mentioned, and it's like we just, as a filmmaker, and again, this is when you're making films that played in movie theaters. Like the first few times that The Earth Will Swallow You played at like the Roxy in Atlanta, and like we were playing in movie theaters. And I've had a couple screenings of the Charleston Music Hall on the big screen. It's such a different landscape now, and I feel lucky that we made the and Scrapple is like this too. Like we entered the arena back when it was about making films on a big screen in surround sound, and we were lucky enough to see a couple films that we made that way. And if you told us in 20 years people will be watching them on their phones. I mean, I would have been like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. But like on a screen this big, I wouldn't have believed it. And yet, hey, if you're gonna watch The Earth Will Swallow You on a screen this big, great. I'd rather you watched it on your computer screen or
on a big
theater.
Screen on the wall, right?
Yeah, but we just want people to see. We think we haven't thrown kudos out to him, but the guy who edited Scrapple, his name's Davey Frankel. And we found him because he had done a documentary on the band Fugazi, and we saw this rock doc that he had done on Fugazi, and we said, we want you to cut The Earth Will Swallow You. And so a lot of the style was like his style. Like we were pretty young filmmakers at the time, and there were times where like we were setting up the camera like on a tripod, and as a filmmaker at the time, I never would have thought that would be the piece that you use. I'd be like, okay, now it's ready, action. And he had this eye. I mean, there's this. It's like when we're interviewing Jerry Joseph, and I think that was at Keystone. And again, he was back somewhere on the tour. So like, we did the stuff with him in Central Park, and both at the Alice in Wonderland statue, and also
the summer stage, right?
At the summer stage, and then we hooked up with him again later in the summer to get this interview. And again, it's like I learned a lot as a filmmaker working with Davey Frankel, because it was like these moments where it was like he just had like a really cool eye. Hey, welcome back, Geoff. I was just telling him about
Sorry.
That's okay.
I just got off the road when I jumped into to this, and I'm sorry, I'm closer to a power outlet. Yeah, well, I mean, Davey, when Panic, I don't know if you just said this, but when Panic first saw the footage, I don't think they really knew what to make of it, because Davey, like literally, I'm not kidding you. He was so ahead of his time. Like the way Davey cut that movie is the way they cut everything now. Like where you hear somebody's voice before you,
Right.
and you see them, and then you see them for a second, and then they cut away again, and you still hear the voice. That's what they do now. Like Davey was literally, I swear, he was a little bit ahead of
it. It didn't. I mean, I'll say that it does not feel dated for being 20 years, and that was an era where it'd be pretty easy to feel dated. I mean, besides the fashion and the and then this, but even you guys did a great job, I think, because even with the video technology, like that can look kind of stale and dated because it's DV, but like it still looked pretty good, I thought, really, based on
old, which
what
is
you
cool.
had.
It's got that sort of old thing, but I think one of the reasons that it still plays so well is really because of the editing. I mean, the guy who edited our movie is triple A editor, so we're fortunate because it could feel really old.
Well, and he was kind of like, I kind of feel, I mean, I don't know what genre Fugazi falls into. Are they punk? They're kind of like street. But like Davey Franco was kind of like a punk editor, like the same way like jazz to music. It's like he just had this style. So when we were in the edit phase with him, and he would be like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" We were like, "Wow!" Like it's like
and he knew nothing about Panic.
Well, it's like we went out.
That's the best part of it. It's like he knew nothing about the band, and he had no vested interest in any of the band members. He was just telling the stories that he saw that, like it was made by guys who really knew a lot about the band and loved the band, and edited by somebody who was completely like, I'm just making this look good, don't you think, Chris?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why I was just giving quick kudos to him, and I'm not even sure if that was the question, how I got onto that. But.
No, it was well worth it. Well, as Vic Chestnut says, punk rockers suck, right?
Right. Yeah.
And fuckers that they are.
The fuckers that they are. Well, guys, I really appreciate it. It's been a ton of fun. I would talk to you all night and would love to do it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. And look forward to seeing the film get out there again, and hope people get to watch it. And scrapplemercantile.com is where they if they want to see more, they want to support what you guys are doing and have done in the past, that's the place to do it, right?
Yeah. And I have a little blog on Facebook called When the Needle Hits the Groove. Little music thing. Just I post music and something I enjoy. I mean, I that's the way my brain. I mean, I'm like, I don't know. I just constantly hard drives. So it's nice to have a place to just be like, oh my God, this is awesome. Let me put it here. So anyway, I do that, and there's that.
What okay, I'll leave you guys with this then. What are you listening to right now, Geoff? What was the soundtrack of the drive up to?
Oh my God, I just did about 14 hours of well, first off, I started by listening to some that Billy Strings did a little podcast during the pandemic where he interviewed a bunch of people. And I listened to a couple of those, and that was really interesting. The Vince Herman thing that he did, Vince just keeps talking about Colonel Bruce. He brings up Colonel Bruce like 3 times, in different ways. And then Billy tells a story about hanging out with Panic, and a story that Colonel Bruce, that they were telling a story about Colonel Bruce, about how they were when ARU that Colonel was saying, play backyard or something like that. And then Jimmy was like, what are you talking about? Play backyard. And then he was like, play backyard on the fretboard, like with your hands, and that like, apparently Jeff Mosier was so beautiful, or Jeff Sipe started crying. Anyway, I listened to that, which was fascinating because I'm a Billy. I mean, I've really flipped out on Billy Strings. Yeah. But I listen to any Billy. Though I will say that if you want to hear, one of my favorite things about Billy is the whole Robert Hunter thing with Thunder. Yeah. How Kreutzmann had a song of Hunter's without any music. Billy composed it in one day. He called him later and composed it on the bus.
Yeah.
And so Saginaw, Michigan, listen to the Thunder. It's one of the best things I've ever heard. So there's that I've been listening to. And then what I put these things out at the end of the year, and music playlists.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going through some playlists that I've accumulated from different people, and I was just going through them and listening to new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the stuff that I was listening to most of the weekend was, but I discovered some old like Maceo Parker and the Nighthawks from 1970. You know, my favorite thing to do these days is to find a song that I love that's super obscure, and then play that on the first song on Spotify and let the algorithm take me to super obscure. Because if you play a song by like Tom Rush, there's a song called Make Julep that we used in Scrapple that didn't end up making it, but it's this really cool song. If you start your playlist with Tom Rush, Mick Julep, you're just going to get a bunch of weird stuff by like Jesse Colin Young and Steele's, Collins, and just so. I mean, that's kind of my thing that I like to do now, is start an algorithm with something that I really love that's super obscure, because it just takes me down like really super obscure, cool other things. Because the algorithm is an amazing.
It knows
thing.
what it's doing.
And that's what it's doing. But I'm going to close with one thing about Spotify.
Yeah.
Because there was a thing about Spotify, like it was like a concert poster was saying about how like Spotify was so bad to get everybody over, right? And Mary Armstrong, the guy, like hates Spotify because the guy who founded it is a real jerk and whatnot. Well, I can tell you this: I interact with Spotify 25 to 50 times a day. Okay. It's my favorite app of all time. I share songs with my daughters and my son and it's like it enriches my life in ways that are incredible. And so I will tell you this about Spotify. First off, nobody has to do Spotify. No band has to participate in it. If they don't like it, they don't have to do it. Okay. It's not like people are saying like, you have to be on Spotify. Okay. So so that's my first thing about Spotify is every band does it lovingly. Okay, or not lovingly, but willingly. Not lovingly because they're not making any money, but willingly. Secondly, Spotify's been around for 20 years and has never made a profit. Not once. If they charged more money, if they gave away more money, they'd make less money. They don't make any money. They've just created the best, greatest music thing in the world. So those are my two main things about, sure, the music business like completely went against artists. And it works for bands like Panic where they're still playing live. But imagine like if you're like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and you don't even play anymore, and now you get like 0.003 cents.
Right. Well, you may not even own the rights to your songs either, right? So
anyway, the reason I'm saying this, you say, what do you? I do a lot. I spend a lot of time on Spotify, and I love it, and I'm a big fan of it. I've discovered crazy cool music, and I can share it with you on my phone and all this other stuff. So anyway, that's what I'm doing, and I'm a big fan of Spotify. And you can listen to it and not feel guilty about it. That's why I'm saying this.
Okay.
People are like, oh my God, I'm screwing the artist over. Right. It's like, look, man, Spotify. It's the way the cookie crumbled. They didn't crumble the cookie. They're just dealing with it. So anyway.
All right. What about you, Chris? Can you give me some actual albums, or do you happen to opinion about something?
I'm not going to give the commercial for Spotify, but I'm the opposite. Like I put on my Pandora and I basically listen to Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead, Panic. Like it's just I'm stuck in my old music, and so I've been listening to a ton of JGB, and
it's a good place to be.
Yeah. So, Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead, old school Grateful Dead. I don't like the newer stuff. Similarly to, like I went and saw J-Rad. I saw two great J-Rad shows before the pandemic and was just like crazy about them. And then I went to go see J-Rad about a month ago up in DC, and I was like, what happened? It was totally like acid jazz, Grateful Dead. I was so disappointed. So I'm looking for like the old school. And I'm not, that excited about the going out of business sale tour this summer for Dead and Company. I just miss. That's why I'm just like I'm listening to so much Grateful Dead and old JGB these days. So
and I oscillate between my Spotify and the Dead and Jerry too. I mean, that's my
I feel you guys because I'm the same way. I love finding new music, but then there's something about going back and it's like putting on a comfortable pair of shoes and listening to the things you love, right? And there's a reason you love them. So, well, we all love The Earth Will Swallow You, so we're excited to get that back. And so January 6th on Nugs and scrapplemercantile.com. And Chris and Geoff Hanson, so much appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with us tonight. And
appreciate it. And if anybody's listening to this like after January 6th, 2023, go to Nugs and just see if it's there.
Right.
We're hoping that it lands there after the 6th as well.
All right. Awesome.
Harvey, thank you so much, bud.
Yeah. No, thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, there you have it. Many thanks to Geoff Hanson and Chris Hanson for taking the time to join us. And I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. It was great to hear all those stories about the time on the road and what it took putting together that film. And so if you've never seen it, definitely watch it. And if it's been a while, then you should watch it again. So Saturday, January 21st, 2023, nugs.net. If you're not a subscriber, it's $9.99. If you are a subscriber, it's $8.49. If you're not a subscriber and you sign up for the service, I think it's $4.99. So lots of different options, but it's going to be great. It's such a great film. I hadn't watched it in a while, and I watched it again leading up to this interview that I just had, and it's so great. There's so many great moments. The music's fantastic, and just a great snapshot of a band that we all loved at just a great time. And I mean, I think, like I said, we'll be talking to Sam Holt coming up here really soon, and I know that he thinks that like fall 2000 is like his favorite moment of the band, and so that's a lot of, we saw The Earth Will Swallow You is summer 2000 through January of 2001. So thanks again, guys, and hope everybody's doing well. And don't hesitate to reach out, follow us on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you get your social media, and bluestape.com. Shoot us an email. So hope to talk soon. We'll be back really soon with a chat with Sam Holt, and take care. We'll see you on the other side.
Osiris. This podcast is in the Loop, the Legion of Osiris podcasts. Osiris is creating a community that connects people like you with live experiences and podcasts about artists and topics you love. Get in the loop at Osiris.